Sound speeds, and welcome back to yet another episode of Speed Bumps. This is episode 12, 2 into our additional episodes, continuing our testing. Real quickly, what's new? Well, nothing. The GoPro Hero 4 Black is still my camera, and I'm still using the Shure Twinplex right up here, providing our sound, recording into the Deity BP-TRX, just like the last time you saw me in episode 11. Let's waste no more time and get right into our content. For us amateurs, I think the general attitude is, I know the more expensive cables are technically better, but the cheap ones are good enough. Although there is a clear difference in isotope RX, it's a small amount of dB overall, and as long as there is no audible buzz, it's fine. Add to that the fact that everyone has access to denoise plugins and most video conferencing apps have noise filters. Does it actually matter to anyone not trying to produce studio quality content? The signal to noise ratio is still very high. This came at the tail end of my 3-part cable testing series, the very first one being when I took the Triton Audio Fed Head and the SE Electronics Dynamite DM1 and put them on the microphone end and on the interface end of a SoundSpeeds XLR cable, and then I measured the noise performance. Realizing that it was a Premium XLR cable and that skewed the results, and many people will not have access to a Premium XLR cable or even find them necessary, I decided to repeat the testing in video number 2. But this time I used a Monoprice, a Cable Matters, and an Amazon Basics XLR cable. Each one of them were priced between about $11 and $12 each, and that was the price for a 10-footer. After doing that test, then I realized that I should take this to the next level and decide to do testing with the with each of those 3 cables and the SoundSpeeds cable once again. And in this case, I decided it would be cool to test the EMI and RFI performance of each one of those cables. But in this case, I decided to run the cables all over very, very bad emitting sources. So that way you could see the noise performance and what it actually did to the cables. And those 3 tests have been put in little cards in the upper right-hand corner of the screen if you missed any of them and would like to check them out. However, his question was specifically about whether or not it really matters, I guess you could say, to summarize it, to the layperson. Well, there is the phrase, ignorance is bliss, and if you don't know what you're missing out on, then you might not even know, first of all, if there's a problem with your cable. There's many times I've talked to people that have issues with cables, and they're like, wow, this thing is buzzing, this cable is acting up, why is the noise so high? Maybe I need to get a Triton Audio Fed Head, or a Cloud Lifter CL1, or any of these other brands, even the SE Electronics Dynamite DM1, any of these devices, because their noise performance is too high. And they don't realize it's because they had a discount interface that is noisy, that they use perhaps a noisier microphone because it was a good deal, or even if it was not performing correctly, you would not be able to tell it because you had to run the preamp so hot and you were running it through a poor quality XLR cable over a bunch of EMI emitting electronics, and therefore your noise floor was high. And just by ignorance, you just did not know there was a problem. But then what I normally will tell people is, if you are trying to be on the discount side, one of the best things you can do then is not, spend the money, but rather to keep in mind that audio should be is in an analog process. And if you have audio cables running over or around anything else that's electronic, it can definitely pick up bad EMI and RFI. So what I always suggest people do is run your audio cable on as short as the cable as possible and run it directly there without passing over any other cables or in between or around any other electronics, unless you can absolutely help it. It's one of those things where, just like anything else that actually spews electrons, a cable is going to perhaps run into those kinds of things. And in the real world, when it runs over electronic devices, and anytime you run a cable over anything that's spewing electrons, it could introduce all kinds of things straight through the shielding, because on many of those discount cables, the shielding is nothing to write home about. But as I mentioned, ignorance is bliss. And if you're just familiar with the device and say, well, I'm at least recording sound, you can obviously process out quite a bit of it to a certain degree. This is where I did that video also, where I talked about saying that you're nitpicking the wrong kind of noise. A lot of the times people are concerned more about the wrong kinds of noises, the ones that you can easily process out, versus the kinds of noises that you should be more concerned about. People, as a general rule, and I'll put that video up in the upper right hand corner for you to check out, but in summary, people are more concerned about the sounds that they don't want to spend the money to fix. Like, you know, you don't want to put up acoustic treatment, and you don't want to actually record at night when it's quiet. You don't want to turn off your air conditioner. You don't want to do the work. You just want to have pristine, perfect audio. And that's a problem, because it's not necessarily going to be good if you continue to sabotage yourself by not prioritizing your sound when you do your audio recording. And then you might say, well, I'll just process out these noises, because really, is it that big of a deal? Yes, it is. But you're right. If you don't really have the money, you won't necessarily know what you're missing out on. But as long as you take priority of your sound, you really care about it, then you could very easily get good results. Some of the earliest recording I did before I really had any money is with some gear that was not that good. But I realized that even though it was high impedance microphones that were picking up radio stations, I realized that if I rerouted the cables a bit and ran them away from my power, I could actually get better audio recording. Some of the earliest videos I did where I was testing this sounded terrible because I was picking up radio stations, and sometimes they were really, really bad pickups of those radio stations, and I ended up having to re-record the audio later. And this is back in the old VHS tape era, where it was just really, really high noise all the time. And, you know, sometimes it was one of those things where I couldn't re-record the audio, and that was bad. So it was a learning experience for me. As a general rule, though, you are right. As long as you take priority of your sound and you care about whatever you're able to get and spend on it, as long as you follow certain rules, you should get decent performance, if not great performance, out of discount cables. Those are designed to work for you, and provided you don't put them through bad, something that's going to affect it in a very negative way, you should be in the good, you should be in a good, position there. For the pro sound topic in this episode, I thought I would discuss honesty with regards to vendor and manufacturer relationships. And if you're a content creator or have any kind of professional relationships with anybody else, you can simply apply these principles in that walk of life as well. In a nutshell, my opinion is, if a manufacturer doesn't know there's a problem and you're not honest about it, or you don't tell them, then it is not going to do them a service, nor is it going to do other customers a service. If you happen to be someone that is trusted to pre-test something, a beta test, an alpha test, if you test something for a manufacturer or give early feedback on something and you don't tell them the issues, then they are not going to know to correct it. Now, some manufacturers are going to say, we have a great product. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure, there are lemons out there sometimes, and they'll send something out to the world and then realize, oh, you got a bad one, let me send you another one. There are some manufacturers, I won't name them, that have done that, have sent out products, and sometimes they're lemons, sometimes there are feature issues that will be corrected via software or firmware later. But as a general rule, when you get those products and you start having issues, you'll see online communities talk about them. There are some products that are released and they are sent out to larger YouTube channels, for example, or they're sent out to professionals in the film industry, and if they are not given proper feedback, the manufacturer will not know if there is if they honestly need to fix something. There are some examples I could be specific about, but I don't want to single anybody out. What I will tell you is that there are some manufacturers that take their quality control very seriously, and any issues that they run into with their own products, they will turn back around, tweak the product, and then make it even better. A couple of examples I'll share with you. Gene Martin over at Sound Guy Solutions, he was working on the quick release tip, and when he was doing this years ago, I was talking to him about it, and there was a couple of issues that he was trying to work out and tweak, and I remember talking to him saying, why are you tweaking that? Why are you doing that? And he said, because I wasn't happy about this, and I wasn't happy about this. And he was talking about these as if they were issues, but they were not actually issues. They were just tweaks and things he wanted to be better. As a perfectionist, he wanted the product to be as good as possible, and I really respect that. He was still releasing the product, even though he felt it could always be better. It was not a bad product. The quick release tip is still a great product, but he wanted it to be better. And that I have a lot of respect for. Another example, Doc Justice over at Halter Technical. When he originally released the field monitor and the scene monitors, he released it with a lot of different, released it with a couple of different ear covers, for example, on the scene monitors. One of them was a pleatherette. The other one was a it was what is it? One was a pleatherette, one was kind of a silica. What it wasn't silicone. What was it? It was like a cover that was there was a pleatherette, and then there was one that was kind of squinchy that if you were in a humid environment, that it would actually get on your ears if you sweat into it, and it would pull onto the headphones. There was also another design to it. I forgot what that one was now because it's been such a long time, and they corrected the issue with the C Monitor 2s. But one of the things that I remember not making Doc very happy about was if you use any pair of headphones and you hand them to a director or a producer or somebody that has a lot of things going on, they'll walk off their chair and not realize their headphones are going to yank, and they'll easily yank the connector out of them, or they'll yank the wire out of the headphones themselves or something along those lines. And so one of the things I did when I got the scene monitors is I kind of, I was going to give it a couple of, stress tests. I was going to tweak it a little bit a few times and pull on the cable. And unfortunately, it broke the very first time I pulled on it. And looking back at the video, it looks like I pulled it a lot harder than I actually did. It's really weird. You can watch my Bumblebee review, for example, and you can see that I twisted that thing and I was trying to damage it, and I mangled the cable to death, but still it took a couple of very strong people on set pulling at it and torquing it before that thing would actually break. But with regards to the scene monitors, the scene monitor 1, it actually broke fairly easily. Well, that was feedback that did not make him very happy, because at the very beginning he said to me, do you just try to destroy everything that you review? And I said, no. The reason why I did that is because it's out of our hands. If you send me a microphone, if you send me a product of some sort, I'm going to test it the way that it would be tested on our sets. And with regards to headphones, you give them to a director, they'll most likely at some point they'll end up scraping along the ground, they'll catch on something. Just today even, the showrunner of the show was on set. He's our next director for our next block. He had his headphones that were around the edge of his chair. He stood up and he got yanked and pulled back because he actually had it in the Comtech, and the connector luckily was stronger than the headphones, because he got yanked back by it. He was like, oh, and then he grabbed it and straightened it out and continued walking down the way. But Doc did not let that bother him. He said, you know what, we're going to make that better, and C Monitor 2s don't have that issue. I tested them, they're great. So I would strongly suggest that. There were little things like that he was not pleased with or wanted to tweak, and he did so. That's what I really have a lot of respect for, is manufacturers, especially those that are of smaller brands that really have a connection to people that test and their customers and have that direct connection, that they really respect the honest feedback. They may not want to hear it, and especially if they're very much invested in their products and they put their heart and soul into it. No one likes to hear bad, feedback, but at the same time, it's sometimes what is going to drive your product to the next level. And so I have a lot of respect for people like Gene Martin and Doc Justice that want to make better products. Now, with regards to pro sound people that are doing beta testing, there's one of those things where sometimes people will do testing for a couple of days, might do a test for a couple of hours, and they'll say, yeah, man, this did great. But to me, this is one of the reasons why I'm very slow in my product reviews, is because I like to test something for a long period of time and put it through its paces. And I will be very critical about little things that I think could get exaggerated in time. And what I will do is if I start to run into things that I could think that could be issues, I'll lean on that, and I'll do more and more testing to test and see if that will actually fall apart over the course of time, or if it's going to do pretty well. And that's one of the reasons why I do take a long time with my reviews. Some people will simply use a product for a couple of hours, and then they want to get that product out quickly or get the review out quickly, because they want to sell it in the affiliate market. They'll want to sell it with their affiliate links, and so they'll sometimes go over products. As a matter of fact, at the time of this video, Andre at Worth It or Not just got through sending back his DJI Action 3. I love DJI products. Their drones are great as far as I'm concerned. If you don't mind the geofencing that happens with them. And if you like the DJI Pocket 2, for example, you like 3 gimbal cameras, those are great. The Ronin is something that we also use on set a whole lot, and those are great as well. I like DJI products, and I was going to get the Action 3. I actually pre-ordered it after hearing Andre talking about it a little bit, and then I saw a couple other videos where they were testing it. The big thing was, in my mind, when I was watching the videos, I said, that focus looks a little sharp, a little bit blurry to me. And then I was wondering if it was just me. So I was like, okay, turn my video to 4K. Watch another video. It still seems blurry, But some of the bigger channels, and Andre just confirmed this for me today, did give it positive, glowing feedback. And they simply, some of them, went down the product list. They went through the product features and all the different things that it would actually provide to you, and the feature set that it has, and how it integrates in with the app, and how you do upgrades, and all these different things. But what it did not do is discuss the focus issue. And now I was looking at this and I was like, I am not sure about this. So I actually asked Andre about that. And then I happened to see Ian Craig covering this in his video, where he got a hold of an Action 3 and he started testing it. And I'm like, you know what? These guys I will actually trust. Ian Craig and Andre, worth it or not, neither one of those guys are going to play favorites. They're simply going to bring information to you. It's one of the luxuries you have of being a small channel. If you don't care about vendor relationships and you end up buying a lot of products for yourself, one of the things that will happen is you will inherently be more honest with it, because you want to provide honest feedback and build an audience. Some of the bigger channels, they're mainly trying to make vendors happy. And I've seen other big channels that will simply review something, and it drives me crazy because they don't hit any of the things that pros will actually be interested in, or they don't hit anything that I think that the end user, if it's not a pro, would be really wanting and needing to know. There's some things that we are privy to, where sometimes we're given information or something like that directly from a manufacturer. You can choose to either test it and go down that rabbit hole and then bring honest information to your audience, or you could sit on it and say, oh, okay, if that's something that you think you're going to fix in a future firmware update, I'm not going to worry about that. Thing is, though, manufacturers will sometimes cut corners, or they'll tell you what they want you to say. If you want to remain in their good graces, then you will say the things that they want you to. I can tell you one product that I reviewed a while back. I was sent and along with a bunch of information, and one of the things I was sent was a document that said people who are using this are saying things like, and it gave me a list of things that are action phrases or things that were that they claimed that people were saying about them. The thing is, though, I said to myself, if this is what other people are saying, I don't want to say the same thing. I'm going to formulate my own opinion, because who wants to be a copycat, for number one? Number two is I would rather come up with my own catchphrase or something like that, and then have that be the thing that is going to represent me in my review. So this particular product, I said, if you're telling me what to say, I'm not going to say that. So I didn't tell them that, but what I did do is I decided I was going to release the video my way. They actually loved what I said about their product, so much so that they took a sound bite, or not a sound bite, but they took some of the words I said in my video, they blew it up really big and put it at the entrance of at their booths on at a trade show that they did, and it credited me with sound speeds in that year. And I thought that was really cool. I was like, that's nothing I asked for. I just simply did an honest review. They loved what I said and happened to take one of the phrases that I said, and they said, well, actually, what you told us was better than what we did. I'm like, there you go. That's it. That's one of the reasons why we need to be very honest with our feedback. Now, there's also been reviews I've done in the past that have not made vendors happy. But at the same time, even if I have to deliver a a negative review, I still will want to do it in a, I don't want to say gentle way, but I would still want to be honest about it, but I would still want to deliver the information in a way that is appropriate to the product and the manufacturer. There is and this is where I'm going to leave this, I'm not going to say the name, a boom pole that I tested, or rather two boom poles in the series that I tested, and it was made well, but it was not what a professional boom operator would want it to be. And so what I did is I went down the list and talked about what was good about it and then I did an analogy the company wasn't happy with, and then I came back and I discussed the opportunity they have to correct their gear and to make a better product should they choose to. Now, I can tell you that as of about 3 weeks ago, when I looked at that company's website, they had dropped one of those boom poles off of their company website, and they don't seem to be focusing as much on them. They're simply focusing maybe on if you're a camera person that happens to need a boom pole for perhaps travel, then you're going to throw this boom pole with the brand that you know inside of your bag. But they don't have the longer one anymore. But that was feedback I gave them, and it was kind of funny because they went back and had a meeting, and the owners of the company and the managers in charge said, "Is he right?" to the research and development team, because they wanted to know if I was being honest or if I was just being a jerk. And one of the things that my contact there came back and told me was that the research and development team kind of looked at each other, and then one guy that kind of spoke for him said it was like he was a fly on the wall. So apparently I said things that, and my input being a professional boom operator, was insight that they had not known, that they did not ask any professional boom operators. They did not compare it to any other products out there. And basically they went by what they knew and what they thought they knew and decided to release it at that time. So in that case, I was very honest with them, and I don't know exactly the focus of them going forward, but I'll tell you this, I did not endorse it at all. Now, there's been other boom poles and other products that I've reviewed. I've said, you know what, this is a quality product. And I've also said, this here is me nitpicking. This is not a big deal. I still think you should try it for yourself. This is me nitpicking and grasping at straws here, trying to find anything and everything I can possibly mention that you would be concerned about. And in some cases, it's been something that is like so ridiculous, I almost thought about not including it, but I don't want to make it look like any product out there is perfect, because they're not. Every product is, of course, different, and there's different features to it. There's different advantages and disadvantages. Sometimes manufacturers will make something that is for a particular person or end user and not for others. And you got to just take the good with the bad. Now, one of the reasons I mentioned all of these things is because I have known people that will get on the inside with a manufacturer, and they will want to make that manufacturer happy by telling them what they believe they want to hear. This is a bad thing, in my opinion, because the manufacturers already know what is good and what is bad. What they will do, though, is they will determine whether or not it's going to stop the press, and they're going to address it before releasing, like a car that does recalls, for example. In the movie Fight Club, I thought it was pretty telling, and it's pretty honest, I think, even though I may not, I may just be buying into the good writing on that movie. But one of the things they say is, if the cost of doing a recall is more than the cost of the out-of-pocket settlements from a safety-related issue or something like that, they don't do a recall. Oh, I'm sorry. If the cost of doing a recall is more than the out-of-pocket settlements they predict will happen from something, they won't do a recall. If the out-of-pocket settlements are going to be more, then they will issue a recall because it's better business. But also, there's a lot of companies, and I'm sure you run into them, that are strong on denial. They'll just simply deny, oh, that doesn't oh, our customers do not say that. This is a one-off thing. It just must be affecting you. You can go in forums on Reddit or in pro sound forums, and everybody's saying the same thing. But manufacturers will deny it. And they can have a whole bunch of different reasons why they might deny something, but, it's not necessarily what you would want them to say, or how you would want them to position themselves. But unfortunately, they're choosing to do that. And in that case, you learn from it and you don't do it again. You don't buy from them in the future. You say, you know what, if you don't want to own this issue or whatever, that's fine. I won't buy that product. And there are products, even in the pro circuit, that I've known people to turn their backs on and say, you know what, I can't trust this manufacturer again. And those products, they might come out with a new version of it and they say it's better. And they'll say it's better because of this and this and this, and they'll mention features that they have corrected and fixed, even though they didn't say that it was a problem to begin with. So manufacturers will sometimes play little games. Now, there are some brands that will make very solid products, and they will say that you will get an extended warranty if you buy a product, because if they think that they can stand by their product. And some products are new, and they'll say, you know, you get a 3, a 5, a 7, 10-year warranty on certain pieces of gear. And those companies, I believe you can trust, because if there's an issue with it, they will fix it for you. They will repair it for you, as long as it's under a certain warranty. There are some products, though, that are new, and you need to let it sit for a little bit, have people work out the bugs a little bit, because some companies will just release a product and they'll say, we'll address this once the product's fixed from customer feedback, or we've had to do RMAs or something like that and fix issues. Well, that was pretty dumb. He just pulled right out in front of a car that was speeding here. Anyway, some of these manufacturers, though, will release a product, and then they'll get customer feedback, and then they'll determine whether or not, you know, it's something that's worth fixing in the next episode, or in the next iteration of it, in the next firmware, or what have you. But the thing is that it all comes down to people being honest. Even when you have tech YouTubers, or you have people that are influencers in product testing something in pro sound circuits and in the pro sound world, you still have people that need to have accurate information. Because if you're going to drop, let's say, $3,000 for a receiver or $2,000 for a transmitter, you want it to be good quality. If you want to buy a microphone and it certainly has RF issues, or it has some sort of issue with the grounding, you would want to know that. And there are sometimes, microphones that are released and they don't know, because they test it with premium gear, and they will not know there's issues until it goes out into the field and people have issues with it using their gear. Because many times manufacturers will use premium gear when they test, or like with regards to the cables that I make, the SoundSpeed Special as they're referred to. Those cables, when I've sent them out to people like Tom Buck, Curtis Judd, Mike Delgaudio, Banjo Scott, when I've sent them out, I've said, don't use those in your reviews if you suspect that there's going to be some sort of an issue, or there could be an issue with the manufacturing of a product. A discount microphone, for example, because my cables will actually correct some issues. And that's kind of been one of those, kind of moments with some of these guys when I was talking to them. Some of these guys, you will see that they use my cables in their videos. Some of them don't. And they'll use them when they don't do reviews. So it just kind of depends on the person. But the long and the short of it is, honesty is what gives people the appropriate feedback. Now, the manufacturer can choose to take that and to get all butthurt about it and say, you know what, well, I'm not going to work with you anymore. Andre recently did a non-favorable review of a company that had just included them. This is Andre, Worth It or Not. He had done really solid work to the company knowledge, and they said, you know what, we're going to bring you into a program that allows you early access to our products, where that way you can review them and get videos out when they're released. And then there was a product that they released before he got into that program that he did not get the latest product. He then reviewed the product because he bought it. He was then not pleased with one major thing about it. And he started to talk about it in a very honest way and prove his point. When he proved it in a very solid way, the manufacturer did not like that, did not take kindly to that, and suddenly sent him an email saying, I'm sorry to inform you of this, but you're not eligible to be in our program. So they rescinded their offer. Well, you know what? Some people would get annoyed by that. Andre looked at it and said, you know what? I don't know if it was because of the video that I released or not, but what I will tell you is that I would rather be honest, because people actually look to me for information, like I did actually when I first heard that the DJI Action 3, for example, was coming out and that he was going to be doing videos on it. I said, ooh, that's something that I'm interested in, because I'm still using this GoPro Hero 4. I've been interested in wanting to replace that for the longest time, but when I saw that it had a soft focus lens, I was like, I might hold off on this. Now, I'm still very interested in the Pocket 3, and I've not turned myself completely off the brand. And if I hear in a couple of months that the Action 3 has been fixed, and you don't need a +4 diopter on the Action 3 to actually make it sharp again, then I might and probably will buy one using one of his affiliate codes. But regardless, my main point in all of this tirade, or in this episode here, is to tell you that if you are dishonest, first of all, your audience will know, or anybody who is another pro that sees you in the forums are going to say, wait a minute, you're not being honest here because I just found this other person says this, and they'll talk. We'll all talk to each other. Word of mouth will spread, and suddenly people will say, don't trust him because he doesn't really test this thing. He's just going to say, oh yeah, it works great. And then, you can't really trust that. You would much more trust someone that really dives deep, really tests the thing, and then delivers you good, solid information, right? Well, in the pro sound world, you definitely want that, especially when you're spending a few grand on just a transmitter or a couple of grand on a microphone or what have you. But when it comes down to content creation, the twist on that is that you can and should be honest with products, because only by then will your audience want to follow you and will approve of what you're doing and how you're doing it, and your channel will grow. But not only that, as much as manufacturers may not like you, they will at least acknowledge that you are honest, and they'll maybe come back to you in time. So there you have it, episode 12 of the Speed Bumps podcast. I have been in rush hour traffic this entire time and have not even gotten halfway to my house. I'm literally looking at the time on my car after recording for nearly an hour in here, considering I've had to restart a couple of times. And one of the things that's also fun about this episode and many others is that I will sit there and sometimes contemplate on the way I want something worded, and then I'll restart. So sometimes you've seen that it'll be light, and then all of a sudden I'll start the next segment and it's dark, or suddenly the sun's in a totally different place. It's not because of anything other than the fact that sometimes I've restarted the video a couple of times over half an hour and not been happy with the direction it's gone or something, and said, you know what, I want to word that better. And I'll think about it in silence. In the meantime, just recording audio and video that I didn't have to store on my hard drives at home. It's one of those things where I will sit there and wait until I'm ready to actually say what I'm thinking needs to be said. It's kind of funny. But today, I've been pretty lucky about being nonstop talking. I've only had a couple of delays that have paused me for a couple of moments. One time there was I won't say it. There was a person, I should say, on the side of the road that was screaming some stuff out, and some of it was not very nice, and I chose not to edit it and to simply restart. So I have lost maybe a total of 15 minutes out of this entire episode. But hey, you know what? I'd rather miss that and reshoot because it wasn't the way I would want it to be than have to piece it together in the edit, or have you sit there and suffer through me rambling, because you already do. You already suffer through enough rambling. But anyway, if you would like to record the outro of this episode or future episodes, then there is information down in the description below. There's only one more episode at this point that I've committed to. I may extend this longer, may not. But after next episode, I'm not going to address it anymore. I will either choose to continue and either continue until I don't, or I will choose to not do it. But after the next episode 13, I'm not going to discuss it anymore. But regardless, thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Speed Bumps podcast. And be sure to tune in to the next episode and perhaps beyond if you want more insight, more ramblings from me while I'm driving home from set, and as always, sound advice.
If you'd like to ask a sound-related question to be answered in a future episode, send text, audio, or video to ssp@soundspeeds.us. Want to record this outro? Details in the description below. Find us on social media and online at www.soundspeeds.us. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more sound-related content.